Just like the political system in Nigeria, the judiciary has seen perhaps a little more than its own fair share of battering from one form of criticism to another kind of scrutiny. Questions have been asked about what exactly, in an ideal situation, the role of the judiciary should be in a democracy. More so for a country like Nigeria that has returned to democratic governance since 1999. In what ways has our judicial system impacted the governance structure in this country? We're seeing the courts from top to bottom churn out verdicts time and again across different matters. We're also seeing, however, many ways in which the interpretation of these judgments have been far from impressive. In some cases, it will appear that the courts, directly or indirectly, are being taken for granted by those who are supposed to be beneficiaries of these judgments. In particular, and very worrisome, are cases that have to do with political development. We've seen how abuse has become the order of the day, where you now have a situation of one judgment, multiple interpretations. You keep hearing things like, well, we have seen the judgment, we are still studying it, or we have not received the CTC of the judgment, or this is exactly what we believe the judgment is saying, as against what the court has already decided. More worrisome are judgments that come directly from the apex courts in the land, which is, of course, the Supreme Court. As we know it, judgments from the Supreme Courts have become more like benchmarks for the judiciary, for the legal system in this country. But politicians in particular and their political parties are now on a journey of making a mess of this entire process. What exactly are the implications for us as a country, whether it has to do with our political system, our electioneering, or even how we try to attract investors into Nigeria? Because we do understand that there's a direct correlation between the legal system of a country and whether or not it's able to attract foreign direct investment. My guest today will help us understand how this evolution is happening and what exactly it means for our dear nation. We'll see you after this break. Hello, I'm Uyag Mofwebe with a delight welcoming you to this edition of Scale of Justice here on Global Television. My guest is Ziggy Usman. He's a lawyer and a legal analyst. Thank you so very much, Barrister Usman, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's begin with the concern that is now very, if you like, palpable around how interpretation has become a problem when it comes to court verdicts, more so judgments that come from the Supreme Court. Who has the latitude to interpret a court verdict, by the way? You are a lawyer.
Well, based on our Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, Section 235 of the 1999 Constitution as amended gave the Supreme Court the power and make it that every judgment coming from the Supreme Court is that section give it a stamp of finality. That section give all judgments coming from the Supreme Court a mark of finality in all judgments. That is to say, there is no right to appeal. It became a law. So once matters arise from the lower court up to that apex court, any pronouncement coming from that apex court stands as the law, because it stands to interpret the law. Moreover, where constitutional provisions need to be interpreted, that is why you see in the context, in the formation of members of the panel of justices in handling matters that has to do with constitutional matters, you see that the number of justices are made to be 7 instead of 5 in regular matters. In any other regular matter, you always see 5 justices. That is what the law provides. 5 justices sit on those appeals and determine them. But once there's an interpretation of the Constitution, then definitely these 7 justices must come together and look at it holistically. And the reason for this high number is for them to do justice in that particular section, as it were, in order to bring light. Because most of the times, the Constitution, they are somehow not clear in some cases. And then people now bring those issues, raise those sections, and make it, formulate it as an issue for determination for the court to determine whether this section really actually means this or that. And by so doing, the Supreme Court in its own wisdom will sit down together and look at it holistically and come out with a tentative divination or direction, so to speak, to the nation, not only on that matter, but to the whole nation on how issues that relate to this matter will be seen and will be handled. Or if such issues occur in the future, then the answer has been given in this matter that was given. So that is how the system works. So the Supreme Court and the Apex Court, and they give the final judgment, and their judgment stands. You don't appeal, you take it, and you go home and either thank your God or you pray to God. As they always say, that from here, where do I go to? You go to God. That is where. That is, if you are not satisfied, you only go to God and nothing more. But that is how the system is being organized and arranged through the Constitution, and where they drive that their power is this Section 235 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
That's what the challenge is, Barrister Usman, because what we have found, especially in very recent times, is interested parties now trying to do their own interpretation, even far and above what the Supreme Court has decided. Talk to us about the factors that give rise to this phenomenon.
Well, one of those factors that give rise to this phenomenon are the issue whereby it goes to the root of the constitution of the judiciary itself. You know, in a serene nation, the judiciary happens to be the paysetters.
Right.
They represent the light of every nation. Where judicial systems are weak, that country is said to be a weak nation. What gives people strength is the judicial arm of government. That is why in the developed nations and some even African countries that know what they're doing, they don't joke with judiciary. No matter how they will, even in military regime, they know they don't joke with judiciary because they know that whatsoever that happens, they need this body, and this body cannot compromise. They are the one to stand and defend the nation, even they themselves. So they hold them with high esteem and respect. But in our own case, one of the problems that makes people to be saying all manner of things, doing things the way they think or interpret whatsoever they see in their own way, is because the role that the judiciaries have played over the past years, they've not stamped and stand on their ground in most of the decisions they've taken. They only say it casually without any serious penalty or punishment made to such people that are trying to violate the provisions of the Constitution, of the ruling or judgment of those courts. Because if there's anybody that has been set as an example, of course everybody come and say, who are you? Why would you do this? This is how it's supposed to be, and everybody follows. Everybody understand that this thing you can always get it by hook or crook, and you can get it by any means. But whereby there's a laid down procedure followed, and in strict adherence to the rule of law, and the court put its foot on the ground that everybody must follow, definitely they don't have option than to follow. But it's because of their laxity and the flexibility that give room to these people to now come out with one interpretation or the other, all in the name of trying to sort themselves from. And mostly, those people, you find out that they are these politicians, so-called politicians. They are the ones in the habit of doing those things. somebody that is trying to get to power by all means, or he's trying to make sure a particular judgment favor him in order to clear the air for him to go for a particular position or office, he goes to any length to make sure that everything that he will do should go in line with what will benefit him as an individual, not in the nation, in the interest of the whole nation. So that is why you see all these kind of issues coming up and people are saying this, and it brings a lot of confusion, not only in the judiciary itself, but confusion in the general citizen of Nigeria, bring confusion to even lawyers, and confusion in the lower courts. Because once they hear something from the apex court, and then somebody is saying different thing, and there are matters before them that they needed to determine, and probably some lawyers are bringing those references for them to look at as the precedent. You discover that they are now confused, because they are in a they are in a crossroad. Which one will they follow? Are they going to follow this or that? And by so doing, of course, you know, they will always decide in any way around at the end of the day, whether for the good or for the bad. But at the end of the day, they have their own reasons to do why they did what they did, because they always have a reason why they say this or that. And they can only use either the one that suits them or the one that is there as the law provides. That is the issue.
Just before we take a break, you've talked about the issue of the judiciary being a bit lax, not really driving enforcement. What more can the courts, I mean, regardless of hierarchy, whether it's the Court of First Instance or the Supreme Court, what more can the courts do in terms of enforcing their own judgments?
Now, in every court, there are enforcement procedures, and there are even departments that handle enforcement to some extent. Now, and those departments are being attached firstly by the police in order to make sure that they enforce those judgments to the letter. But the fortunate thing is this, like you did mention, where there's multiple orders in the same subject matter from almost the same courts, how do you go about it? That is where you see whosoever that has interest will take the first step to make sure that he overshadows the other party, and then thereby leaving them to stand outside. Because once you are dragging the property with a person, an example, and then he finally succeeded in chasing you out of the property, you will only throw stones from outside while he's inside. But if you are still inside and he's dragging the property with you, at least you have a foot in that property to some extent, because you're occupying it.
Right.
You are in ownership, even though the title has been in contention. But you know how to wiggle it out and finally get well. But the ones you are afraid and you are kicked out, definitely, even though you are the rightful owner of that property, you discover that you can only fight from outside. And fighting from outside to some extent, but not in the context of the Nigerian judiciary, you might not always get what you want, because there's a departure from judicial activism to something else different, whereby people does not have a sense of regard to some extent to the judiciary because of what they see or hear. We are lawyers. Sometimes somebody will call you and say, "Come on, what's going on? I heard this is what this judgment go. Why is this judgment like this?" And you will be shocked to your bone marrow, because, of course, they are putting a question to you that you need to answer based on your faith and based on your conviction as a lawyer and what you stand for. Do you stand for justice, or you stand for anything that comes your way? Now you have to define and tell them this thing in order to give them a succor, so that they cannot also look at the judiciary, because we are judiciary, whether we like it or not, we are part of the judiciary as lawyers. We are ministers in the temple of justice. Right. If the judiciary is cracking, we are actually cracking as well. Because we cannot say we cannot be pointing accusing finger on them while we are saying that we were okay. No, it's all a collective thing. Because before you became a judge, you must first of all become a lawyer before you will be appointed as a judge. So it's not that the judge come from heaven, they just drop them that you are judge.
There's a process.
There's a process. And one of these processes is that you must become a lawyer first before being appointed as a judge. So you understand this law thing, you understand what it says. So a lot of backlashes and feedbacks that we receive from our clients and people out there, we always tend to see how we can calm them down, because it gets to the point that they understand this thing very well, more than we do, because you can't tell them something that's not true.
Right.
This is how it is, and the judgment goes the other way around. Why? Then they will be looking at it that, yes, because it has been compromised, because that is what the first thing that will come to their mind, compromise. Now, how will you justify compromise as a lawyer and on the other part? You will say, well, they did what they did because that's what they think is best for now. Because there's a lot of burden on the judiciary, most especially the judges, that most of them, they don't know that this burden is on them. And not because the Constitution has given them that duty or that mandate, but God himself even give them a mandate to do and represent people on earth. Because God cannot come from heaven and come and judge your matter. There are judges. Once you take that oath as a judge, automatically you are serving two things. One, humanity, and God, representing God on earth. So there are a lot of burden in your shoulders that you need to dispense with. That is why you need to do it in good faith, in fairness, and in the interest of justice. No matter what, you must take these three things into consideration in any decision, ruling you give. And having at the back of your mind that you are doing it in place of God on earth. And he will one day ask you, how did you go about this thing, responsibility I give you? People became judged from different angles, different ways, and whatever. But no matter how you get there, in as much as you've taken that oath as a judge, these two mandates are on your shoulders.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break now because I'm sure there's so much on our shoulders too to talk about on this program, even though time is quite frankly limited. After this break, we'll talk about to what extent is our judiciary weakened at this point, given all of these factors that we have enumerated the last couple of minutes. We'll talk to you about those when we return shortly. Do stay with us. Thank you so very much for staying with us, everyone. On a scale of 10, Barrister Usman, how weak or otherwise is the judiciary right now? I mean, from what you know, from the concerns that you have, from the things you hear, both from lawyers like yourself and those who are non-lawyers.
Well, as it stands, the judiciary is presently in a very, very tight corner and tight situation right now, because they have thrown a lot of things at them right now that they need to do everything humanly possible to redeem itself in order to have a sense of humor and then some level of acceptance by people. Because as it stands, a lot of people are losing hope, are losing their interest in, moreover, what seems to be litigation. Because they said, the always conclusion is that if you don't have money and you don't know anybody, there's nothing for you. There's no justice for you.
So there's no need going to court?
There's no need going to court. So now, if we allow ourselves to get to that level, it's going to lead us to a state of chaos, that law is no longer regarded as something that somebody sees and respect and obey or fear or have recourse to. You do anything you want to do and get away with it. And that thing that they need to do have to start from the top. Because the problem that people are facing, that this country are facing right now, is because some of those politicians are practically untouchable. Practically untouchable, practically above the law. And I don't blame them so much like that, because if you trace how some of those judges get to where they are, probably one way or the other, in this country, Nigeria, you can never hardly get an appointment based on merit. In a scale of 10, let's say 8 people are based on merit. It's not done. is not possible or is not visible. It used to be.
Even for the way judges are appointed.
Yes, it used to be. But if you don't know somebody, for somebody that knows somebody, it's no-go area for you because you cannot get what you want. Of course, you have all the qualification, all the criteria, all what it takes, but because of favoritism, or you are not belonging to one so, either senator or whatever has not recommended your name to that effect, you hardly get to that place. Now, if that is the criteria that they are using to get those appointments, how do you think they are going to stay and do what to affect the general public? They are rather going there to represent those people that find their way, make a way for them to get to that seat and protect their interests, no matter what. Because a call will come, I need this. This is what they're trying to do. Try and make sure that you protect me. No problem. We'll see what we can do. Of course, they will find a way along the line to see how they can get it. And that throw a lot of questions to people and turn people to confusion, state of confusion, hopelessness. Because a country that the judiciary is not up and doing is as good as far as I'm concerned, a forgotten nation. Because there's no way, if the citizens they don't have confidence in the judiciary, then there's a problem. That is why we need to work hard and make sure that we redeem the image of this judiciary. That was not how it was given to us. Before now, you see how judgments are given. If you go to Supreme Court nowadays, you will discover that in the political matters, the other party opponent will already arrange the ban and instrument that will be there to celebrate the judgment. The simple question is that, how did he know that the judgment is coming out in his favor?
Maybe he was just being optimistic, who knows?
How did he know? This thing happens regularly. It's not that it happened maybe once or twice. Almost all the politicians you see, governor election, maybe governor election.
So are you saying that's an indictment on judges?
Yeah, yes. Because before now, what we know is that when you go to Supreme Court, when judgments are given, I was in court one time when the former then Oputa panel, was a Supreme Court, and then they were giving out judgment. And one of the persons sitting close to me, the other people sitting close to me, they are practically about, let's say, sweating. Because the judgment, out of the panel, the 5 panel of justices, 2 have agreed, the other 2 disagree. It's remaining one of them that will agree or disagree. Once that one agree, the other people get it. Once the other one disagree, the other party get it. So it's the other party that they are waiting for whether they will agree to their own side to win the case. They were practically sweating inside AC in Supreme Court. Sweating. And I was wondering, until after the matter, that was when I now discovered, what's going on? They said it's because of this. If this man had not said this, probably would have not been. I said, okay, and I understood. It's because they were banking on who to say the final yes to the other 2, to give the other 2 3 number 3 against 2.
Right.
Do you understand? That is how tense those days judgments are. You go with, I'm on the hand of God. Not that going prepared, Mr. Ban, stay here, you stay here, you stay here. These people should not even come to this arena. Don't allow them to come because it's our day. It is not done like that.
But Mr. Usman, I mean, we're closing now. In 2 minutes, there are people who believe strongly that we can't put all of these squarely in front of judges. That lawyers like yourself also are complicit, because they say lawyers, most times, some lawyers are the ones who tell, politicians in particular, don't worry, I know the judge. Don't worry, I can find a way around this. Your chances are bright, and so on and so forth. And they lead them by the hand to break the law, commit all sorts of infractions, even right in the face of the Constitution.
Yes, one of the basic fundamentals of lawyers, as I was taught far back in university, is that it is not a do or die for a lawyer to, one of your duties, core duties, is not for you to win cases at all costs and at all time. One of your basic role as a lawyer is to present your case in the best way that you know you can't. That is to say,
making sure you put all the ingredients needed in order to present your case in the possible best way that you can present it. Not to cut corners, not to follow through the back, or try to see how you can influence judges in order to see to your own side. That is how you're supposed to do it. Now, this attitude makes it a norm among us lawyers that I must win by all means. That is what leads to this kind of attitude that you see. They go behind doors to make sure they see this one, they see that one, to talk to this one, so that this thing can be in my favor. That is it. Because the judges do not wake up one day and begin to say, come, where are you? They don't do that. They are not associated with people. They are isolated. Isolated in the sense that to see them is a problem, to talk to them is a problem. Even my uncle used to be a judge, High Court judge, the CJ of my state. He's a CJ of my state. Now, being as a CJ, he's somebody that you cannot access because he's your uncle. You can just go and see him. I want to see you. Where are you? No. In the house, you can't see him. He's either in the study or doing some things, or maybe in a guest house where you cannot even access that place and see him. That is how they are. Now, if you want to make, if you are trying to support them, is to give them the space, breathing space that the law allows them to have, so that they can deal with the things that they're supposed to do squarely without fear or favor.
And that raises the question of how then do these lawyers access them for this alleged compromise?
Now, they access them because they put in their mind that they must win their cases by all means.
So they go to any length?
They go to any length. And that attitude now leads them to these steps, now to see how they can find a way to access those judges by any means. And of course, the judge did not fall from sky, from heaven. Somebody give birth to him, and he's married to somebody. He has children. He has relations.
He has parents.
He has parents. So they can trace them through those channels. And then, to some extent, it depends on the judge himself whether he can say no to his father, or to his wife, or to his brother, or to his colleague in school.
So quite an interesting issue.
So there are parameters roundabout, and then the whole crux of this matter is that those lawyers put it at the back of their mind to win their cases by all means.
That sounds like desperation.
Yes, they are desperate to win their cases by all means, and forgetting that this is the proper way to follow and present your cases before the court, and the court will determine it in fairness and injustice. Because nobody goes to court because he knows that they are going to do injustice to him.
Of course.
You go to court because you believe that there are going to be justice at the end of the day. If that is your belief from the right go, then definitely the judges should be allowed. They should be given free hand. They should not be truncated. They should not be forced to do something different from what they're supposed to do.
We hope that becomes the case going forward, in particular where there is no interference, or at least minimal interference, barest interference with regards to how judges do their own job. A man once told me some years ago that a time there was in this country where judges practically didn't have social life.
Of course.
You can have a judge on your street for 40, 50 years. You have never seen him.
Yes.
The highest you see is his car in front of his house, but you don't know what he looks like. But that has not been the case in the recent history of this country. But I would like to say a big thank you to you.
Thank you very much.
Barrister Usman, for taking our time to join us.
Thank you very much.
And that's where we draw the curtains on this edition of Scale of Justice here on Global Television. On behalf of my team that has made this possible, I say a big thank you, and we are Mofwebe. Bye-bye.